years you've been involved with arts and performing arts, it's been a few.
I'm getting to the point where I don't quote the number. I just say I came in 1985. That's a few.
Yeah, decades is what we're saying here.
That's right.
Have you ever seen this kind of challenge that's posed by the COVID virus towards the performing arts and theater?
No, and it's comprehensive. Let's, in the terms of the theater, let's start at the top. Broadway's been shut down for 4 months, and I don't think that's ever happened. I mean, all through the 20th century, it was running, all through the Depression, all through World War II, and the First World War. In fact, I read an article in the New York Times just last night that, or glanced at it, that basically said they were running plays during the 1918 pandemic in New York. Not that that was a smart thing to do, but this has been a real challenge for the performing arts, and it's almost I tend to be optimistic, and so I kind of think of it as an opportunity. How do you take something that's a negative and make it an opportunity? I mean, it's an opportunity in theater and music and dance for the community, for example, in the upstate, to pause and to regroup and to focus on things they may not have time to focus on because they're so busy producing. Performing artists are always about, in music, the next gig or the next concert or the next play or the next musical, and sometimes I tell my faculty here at Anderson University that we've got to get out of the crash and burn syndrome. I'm all about the next show, and when the show's over, I crash and burn, and then I pick up the pieces and try to rebuild and do it again. And so this may be the opportunity to look at some of the broader issues for arts groups. Opportunity to say, what is our purpose? How can we become more flexible? How can we pivot on a dime, as people are saying these days? I know Dr. Whitaker, our president, talks about flexibility being the key for this next year. And we're showing that all the time. Our plans here at Anderson University at the South Carolina School of the Arts are changing daily, it seems like. Not completely changing, but evolving. And we need to adjust with that. And so it's, in that sense, it's an opportunity to look at the infrastructure of how things are put together. For student artists, student performers, and we have a lot of them, it will be an opportunity to perform, but not as the end goal. It will be, because those performances will be segmented and small, with no or very small audiences or video audiences, and it's going to be particularly difficult because in music, for example, in musical theater, the biggest challenge is singing. It's one thing for you and I, Greg, to be 6 feet apart from each other, but they tell us in best practices, as we've been keeping current with, that it's really about 15 feet in singing. They call it the aerosol effect. The part that makes you a really good singer, or I was telling somebody yesterday, the part that allows opera prima donna at the Metropolitan Opera in New York to stand on stage and project to 3,000 people over an 80-piece orchestra without amplification. That same part can shoot virus that far too. And so everything you know about projection is detrimental in terms of virus health and trying to prevent. So what do? We focus on, to use a football image, because football's a hot issue these days, we focus on the essentials. We focus on the primary concerns. We're going to make you a better singer. Okay, doesn't mean you're going to be doing a lot of large group better singing, but we're going to make you a better singer. And so as a result, when this lifts and we do get back to a sense of normal and we can do choral singing, what we have as a group, as a performance, should be a higher quality performance. But mostly, not just, gee, I put together a good performance, but mostly those students will be better singers. And so we're focused on the essentials. We learned a lot in the last half of the spring semester. Our kids went home for spring break. As you know, spring break at colleges and universities doesn't follow Easter. It just is smack in the middle of the term every time, like the third week of March. And so they go home, and then they were notified that they're going to stay home an extra week while we get ready. And then they were notified a few days later they're just going to stay home. And we were scrambling like every other university. And we made the transition, and we did it well. It was difficult, and at times even highly stressful, because for faculty and for students. But we learned a lot, and we've taken our time rebuilding for this fall, basing on best practices and what we've learned. We do online voice and instrumental lessons. We have well over 200 private lessons, people taking private lessons in a semester, and and lessons won't happen in Dee Dee Francis's studio next door or Tommy Watson's studio after that. Maybe some under certain key circumstances with restrictions. But what might happen is those lessons will probably be done online, and then occasionally Dr. Perry, our music chair, and I are talking about essentially telling every voice and instrumental student, you're also going to have a lesson, at least 2 lessons, on either the Daniel stage or the Henderson stage. Suddenly, Henderson Auditorium with 1,000 seats is like gold to us, because the larger the space, the less threatening it is. And so the real challenge is going to be the discipline for the university, for our cleaning services, and especially for our students to get into a practice room and practice the requisite hours, and then clean up after and make sure everything's good. And then we'll make sure someone else is coming in after them. So it's going to be a challenge, and we're just going to have to feel our way through. It's kind of like being raised in the North, when ponds and lakes would freeze in the winter. The first one out on the ice is always a little, you hear a crack and you go, oh, and you start backing up, I guess we won't go that way. But we are committed at Anderson University to provide a live experience for our students that is positive, and in the arts that is focused on these fundamentals like I've been talking about. For example, we have a 2-play series in each semester, so 4 plays in a semester. The first play is scheduled for late September. It's September 23rd, 24th. Primarily a woman's play called The Women of Lockerbie, where the jet came down in Scotland. A beautiful play, and Mary Nichols is directing the show for us, and we're so excited because she's such a wonderful director, and that she's so connected to that play. And the play's set in outside, kind of on the heath, so to speak, okay, in this kind of metaphoric area. And she was describing the set about a month and a half ago, and I said, well, Mary, let's just find a place to do it outside. Let's do it outside. There's 2 issues. There's the issue in terms of safety of a performer in a performing event. The one issue is the safety of how do you rehearse, and how do you block a play, how do you put them in close proximity. You really can't directly. And I think we can deal with that with a small cast and keep a distance among us. But the other issue is safety of your audience. And by exploring places and venues, so to speak, that aren't venues on campus, and we have like 4 or 5 of them right around this building that we want to look at with the administration, one particularly that we're interested in, that would work lovely. And you keep it simple, and that way you're not overemphasizing the visual element, and it works like that. But then it gets even more creative, because the second play was going to be a large Stephen Sondheim musical called Sunday in the Park with George, and slated for Henderson Auditorium in the last weekend of October. Well, we just kind of do this. are we going to do? You know, we'd throw out ideas, and then we'd try to tighten them, and that wouldn't work, and then we'd try to find another option. The best option we came to, and I really appreciate the work of David Solis. He's our new chair of the theater program, musical theater specialist, and had been the chair for 4 years at Bellhaven in Jackson, Mississippi. Terrific guy, and he was directing the show. So David and I began working together on this in late May, early June, and we thought, what happens if we rearrange the schedule? So let's take the large musical with 35 people and probably a crew of 20 people, and instead of trying to figure some safe way to do this, let's rearrange the schedule so that that play will take place in April, and the Shakespeare play that was slated for early April can take place in October, which interestingly enough is going to be Richard III, which is rather intense. And so October tends to be a rather intense time. You know, you want to do something either spooky or some kind of intense play. And Rob Homer Drummond is one of my most creative people, always taking a new twist on things. He came to us about 3 weeks ago and said, I want to do a podcast of Richard III, and I want to do it in episodes. And he initially was talking about 10 episodes, and I said, whoa, Rob, pull us back. Let's talk about, so we've been negotiating, you know, what the R3 podcast will look like. But the idea is that we do a high-end audio record at rehearsals, and then in a certain segment, whatever that episode is, and then we actually present that episode, almost like a radio play. As we're talking, I keep coming from the radio play end of things, and I keep encouraging Rob to make sure that it might, or to see if it might be something that on a Friday late afternoon, when we record that episode after it's rehearsed for a week or so, we're able to maybe bring 15 or 20 theater students in to watch from the other side of the room, and they're all, you know, in one place. And Rob is kind of coming from the side of like, if people are isolated, they could do this from home. Well, they could. But so, you know, we're kind of working this out. But here's what I love about that is it's that initial creativity of what the theater's about, and it's utilizing a kind of social media and podcasts, which are wonderful. They're wonderful. I mean, you can find just about anything out there, and it puts us up there, kind of out there at a cutting edge of what to do with your technology. And here again, like the issue on choral singing or instrumental music, it's not about the great performance as much as it's about the experience that our students have, and our students getting experience working with post-production work 4 or 5 times, you know, in a row. That's dynamic.
You mentioned radio drama. You know, some of the best writing of the last century was some of our best writers took plays and movies and wrote them for drama for radio, and there's some powerful. You have to condense and compact. Yeah. But you're talking about doing things that, you know, more remote and not. Yeah. Do the kids? I know I'm not a performing artist, but I know they talk about feeding off the crowd. Is it harder to get energy up when you don't have a crowd to?
Well, that's part of the challenge. I imagine. I imagine. You know, I'm chuckling because as Rob and I would talk, I'm always on the side of we need to have some kind of performance dynamic in this. You know, it can't just be sitting in my dorm room talking in the microphone. It's got to be. It's got to have that kind of dynamic. And I finally said, Rob, you're a really great director, and there's going to have to be regular rehearsals where you have everybody in a room somewhere. Maybe they've got plastic shields around them that we're going to develop. I don't know yet, but we've got to have some way for you to be able to tighten the shoelaces, so to speak, so that the whole thing has a focus and a direction. And he understands that.
How many plays did you lose last year?
We lost his play. He was doing a comedy last year, and it was supposed to open in early April. Oh, and he would come back and he'd say, He had one idea. It wasn't a podcast, but he said, "I want to do." I've been in touch with this woman in New York who has this company. There was a guy in New York who has this company that can make avatars out of characters in plays, and your actors can be the voices of that, and that's what we'll do. It's so, and I love that about Rob, because it's just pure creativity, and I wouldn't want him any other way, because it's not about getting the show on and it looking just like the last show or the last show. It's always a new take on something, and so this is a real fertile time for us in the performing arts to do something creative. For example, the administration has made it clear that they don't have any expectations on us in terms of public performance events this fall. Any performing you do, my boss, the provost, said, any performing you do is based on the student objectives in the class they're in, and that's their safety and the safety of everyone working with them is the most important thing, and that's terrific. Oh, I went to the music department, and hang on a second. I went to the music department, and they came back a few days later and said, "Well, we're going to do a Christmas concert anyway." I said, "What do you mean?" So we want to do a video Christmas concert, and we may take our ensembles and put them in different places outside on campus in October and film them. And I'd come back and I'd say, "Okay, well, I think that's a lovely idea, and don't call it Christmas First Night, because Christmas First Night has parameters around it, and it's a very special thing in people's mind. So call it something else." That was my first suggestion, and then, but then I said the biggest challenge there is video, because we're a performing program. I mean, more than half the kids at the South Carolina School of the Arts are here to perform. That was probably like 200 students, and performance-based programs, dance, music, and theater. And we're not necessarily a video program. We've got a video program over in communication that we're talking with. They're working on videoing chapels at a higher level this year. We'll have remote-mounted cameras in Henderson and put a studio up in the old booth. And all of that's good, but it was like, on one side, somebody could say, "Oh, well, we'll just film it," and I'd say, "Well, I just want to know who's doing the just," and how do you produce something that's of exceptional quality?
How good do you want your music to sound?
Yeah. How do you do something exceptionally high quality? But it's the same thing. I love it because it's new. They've never done it before. They need to drive it. Rob wants to do a podcast of Richard III. Richard Williamson, director of choral music, wants to do a video concert at Christmas, and it will be, objective based in terms of courses and that kind of thing. So let's fight to have as high quality as we can. Not fight, but work hard to make these as high quality as we can, and they'll give the community an opportunity to interface with us online. And that's the last thing I wanted to mention. But the second thing I want to do is take advantage of the opportunity. And the opportunity is to fully turn the corner into digital access to the South Carolina School of the Arts. And so instead of just saying, "Hang in there with us, we'll let you know," we want to say, "Hang in there with us and get to know us on the website, get to know us on our calendar. Our calendar is going to be interactive. It's going to be changing every week, and we want you to be involved. Here's how to be involved." So the main message is, yes, we have a couple of things we want to tell you that we're planning to do, but the main message here is the website. The main message is the South Carolina School of the Arts interactive website that's part of the university's website and allows people to feel like they know who we are, and we're expanding that into kind of a newsletter outreach, human interest stories, and that kind of stuff. So,
I mean, if I'm a performing arts student and I'm coming in this year, I'm thinking, am I still going to get to perform?
No, but yes, some, maybe not as much. and I will go back to the first comment I made, which was try to truncate it a little bit. We're going to be working on techniques and fundamentals diligently. We're going to take advantage of the opportunity to make that the focus in performance classes. There will be performance opportunities, but we can't put 70 people in the Wind Symphony on stage, sitting next to each other, doing this, sharing a music stand kind of thing. We can't do that. We're going to have to do a lot of sectionals. We may rehearse the Wind Symphony in very large spaces, for that opportunity. And we're going to have to smile and adjust. It
should be an interesting sound, though.
It will be an interesting sound. For another example is a large university choir. Kids from all over campus come to. Very popular professor, Chris Hansen, directs. Just highly charismatic guy, terrific. And so he attracts kids. All of our choral ensembles, the three of them, they all meet at the same time. And that way it's easy to kind of do joint works together. And but that's 70, 75 people. And they usually meet in Daniel. We can't do that. But what we can do with 70 people is we could put Chris Hansen and an accompanist on stage, social distance, and put the choir in Henderson Auditorium facing the stage. And then they'd be 10, 15 feet apart. You can do that with 70 people when you have 1,000 seats to work with, But then, in that may be where they spend most of their time. But they'll be working in groups, getting things ready, going outside whenever they can, and that's what's happening all over the country, which makes things interesting when you get to November and December, or November, let's say, because I've got some news on that. But so anyway. Like I said earlier, Henderson Auditorium is going to be a premium. That's the biggest challenge, the choral one. We've got so many wonderful performance groups and ensembles, but we're just going to have to explore as we go through.
And Anderson University has always been sort of the hub for all arts in the community. I mean, from theater to music, the things you're talking about. You are still committed to that. It's just a new way to do it, and the best place for people to really get engaged with that is, tell me again.
Is at the website, andersonuniversity.edu, and go to the South Carolina School of the Arts, and that site's growing and developing all the time. In fact, the new platform for the major site itself, the platform is a new one in the last 3 or 4 weeks, so we're excited.